Well, there's an old saying that goes something like, in the land of midgets, the short man is a giant. And as it turns out, I've not made a video about this yet. The Nikon G500 just came out. I've done 13 or 14 videos. And the question I'm getting asked now, and it is the logical question that needs to be answered, is that now that the D500 is out, where is its position in the hierarchy of Nikon DSLRs? Marco asked me a question that he's a landscape shooter. Mainly shoot landscapes and portraits. Well, one point to consider, obviously and logically so, is while the autofocus system, especially in low light, but regardless, is far superior on the Nikon D500 than the D750, you don't have an issue with moving landscapes, and unless it's candid street portraiture, you don't have an issue with either portraiture. Subjects moving, they move to your will, hopefully so, and certainly the landscapes aren't moving, so concerns over autofocus speed aren't really important. If that's all that you do, then the answer, of course, is still the Nikon D810. The 36 megapixel full-frame sensor on the Nikon D810 is irreplaceable for portraiture and for landscape. If, however, it's going to be a travel camera and you're going to miss the moment, and one thing that I discovered is the autofocus is far superior on the Nikon D500 than on the D750 and the Nikon D810 or the D7200 or D7100. It just is. So now the question becomes, at the price point too, which of course is an important consideration for most people, you know, they have a budget. It's like, well, I can afford to buy the best or the most expensive, but even the most expensive isn't the best. The Nikon D810, current USA warranty price is still like $2,800. Or gray market price is $2,000, which is basically the same price as the new Nikon D500 with USA warranty. So USA warranty Nikon D500, $2,000, or a gray market D810, basically $2,000. But for landscape or portraits, I would still choose the gray market Nikon D810. So the hierarchy of where's the missing Tetris spot for the D500 to fall, as far as the logical purchase, depends on what you're going to do with it and what's your budget. Well, the sky's the limit. I can buy whatever I want, for example, which isn't the case for most people. You know, if I'm going to be doing street shots, I'm going to be missing the moment, I got to have the best autofocus, especially for low light, and for places where I can't use a flash. The most expensive is not the best. The Nikon D810 would not be my choice. It would be the Nikon D500 here. Certainly so. So that is where the Nikon D500 falls. As far as candids, street, action, the Nikon D500, and low light, especially low light and dynamic range and in the high ISO, you know, the D500 absolutely just kicks the ass of the Nikon D750. For most situations now, I can actually say that I cannot recommend the Nikon D, unless the price drops radically. Current gray market price on a Nikon D750, $1,500, so it's $500 less than a D500. So where would I recommend, now that I've done a comparison between the D500 and the D810, where would I recommend the Nikon D750 over that of the Nikon D500? And the answer really is it's almost nothing. It's nothing. I have issues with compression. I have issues with crop factor. You know, that's inescapable on the Nikon D500. It's still a DX crop sensor camera. However, signal processing and the autofocus, low light, high ISO capabilities of the D500, and the fact that, as I mentioned in a video yesterday, I know for certain, having done now about 14, I've been out all day shooting with the Nikon D500, I'm a shots up later, I know for certain that 15-20% of the shots that I got with the D500 I absolutely would have missed with the D750 and the D810. Period, flat out, period. Just, there's no arguing it. We're not talking about landscapes that aren't moving. We're talking about missing the moment. It comes, it goes, boom, it's gone. You missed it. Is out of focus? You missed it. The D500 got that, where the D750 wouldn't. I don't care how good your photography skills are. You know, if you miss the point of focus on a quickly fleeting moment, then you've missed it. So this is where the Nikon D500 falls. At $2,000, when I first got it, you know, I was not expecting to be impressed at all. I was thinking, oh, a DX crop sensor camera, pff, another one from Nikon. Oh, it's a mini D5, quote unquote. Ah, you know, sure, okay. But every attribute about the Nikon D500 screams excellence. It is a legendary camera, or soon to be a legendary camera. It just came out. It's not a legend yet, but it will be. The autofocus capabilities, the low light, the high ISO, the touch screen, which in and of itself is nothing other than a neat feature that is incredibly useful in previewing shots or chimping on your shots. But even if it didn't have that, I would still consider it to be a legendary camera. It captures those moments that were missed. I've had a few people contact me via email that have purchased the Nikon D500, and they said, you're right. Before, and these are people that are true professional shooters, they said, look, I have a D750, I've got a D800E, one guy said. He said, I'm getting far fewer rejects. Autofocus or missing the moment on the D500. Missing, I mean, have far fewer rejects on a D500 than I've ever had on my D750 or my D810. So that is where the Nikon D500 falls. For portraiture and landscape, you know, where you don't have issues of autofocus, nothing's going anywhere, everything is under your will, the Nikon D810 still reigns supreme. As far as a travel camera, as far as capturing the moment, candids, it's perfectly fine for landscapes. It's 20.9 megapixels, so what? The Nikon Nikon D3 at 12 megapixels was still perfectly fine for landscape shots. However, the ability to crop heavily on it is basically non-existent, of course. So that is where the Nikon D500 falls, and it takes the place of basically 90% of what the Nikon D750 would. Nikon definitely stuck a knife right in the back and a bullet right through the brain of the Nikon D750 with the Nikon D500, because all of the use attributes and the spectrum of recommendation that the D750 has had has moved over here, unquestionably so. Anyway, I hope that answers your question, Marcus, and I'll catch you later. Bye.